Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, here to give you another episode of my weekly Q&A to help people's questions, where I answer a series of questions that have been sent to me over the past week. For this particular episode, I think it's going to be a pretty standard episode. We did get a number of questions that I will both answer here in the video. I think I have 5 of them, as well as a number of questions that I did answer in the comment section of the last video. So I want to thank all of you guys that happened to send your questions in. And like always, if you haven't already, please do not forget, if you like this video and would like to see more content like this every week, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and press the subscribe button if you happen to be new here. And I have to say, this episode, across these 5 questions, I think there's a good balance of everything. So starting off with the first question coming from Winter Ghost, you want to know, do I think that Persona 6 should be based around Goro Akechi by taking place before the events of Persona 5? No. No. You never want to do a sequel. Okay, now look, I would say I'm rather kind of fresh to the Persona franchise, but this is just in my opinion. If you're making a sequel, it's probably best not to have it take place before the previous entry, because that's just going to confuse people. Because if people were playing them in numerical order, it's just kind of confusing. Why would you want to make 6 to be a prequel to 5? And as interesting as a character as Akechi is, from what I have seen about the Persona franchise, they're all self-containing stories. They have, I believe, really almost no real connections outside of a few recurring characters, but each individual Persona game is its own unique story that takes place in its own universe. So if and when they do make a Persona 6, I expect it to be its own complete different thing. I do not expect any connections to Persona 5, and I think I'm okay with that, because that's how Final Fantasy works, and heck, that series has been going on for quite some time. So no, I would not want Persona 6 to be a prequel to Persona 5. Not necessary. Next question comes from, this is probably the most serious question I got today, and it comes from Shadow Desis Gaming, and you want to know, what are my thoughts on people wanting to abolish the police? Oh dear God, I've tried to avoid talking about this insanity that's been going on in the country for the last couple of weeks, or last month I should say. People who think that in order to fix this whole apparently racial injustice problem is to get rid of the police, you have got to be, excuse my French, fucking stupid. You have got, that has got to be the single dumbest idea I have ever heard. Why the fuck would you ever want to get rid of the police? Look, I understand that this is an issue that's been around for some time, but I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I've never ever had an issue with the police. I mean, as a black man in this country, believe it or not, I can't really relate to the people who think that they're being oppressed, because I have never even been near any of those neighborhoods or ghettos or really bad parts of town that they were forced to grow up into. I'm sorry that that's how they were raised up, but that is not how I was raised up. In all the locations that I have lived, or where I was growing up, I was either in a good neighborhood or in a good apartment complex. So this whole notion that as a black man I should be in constant fear of the police, I've never felt that. Apparently they're like black parents that apparently have this supposed talk with their children about, well, if you get pulled over by the police, make sure you don't do this. That's never happened to me. That has never happened to me. In my entire life, I've only been pulled over twice on my bike, and it was both entirely my fault. And at no point did I ever feel like I was ever in any danger or was going to be racially killed or be part of an incident. I've never ever had that feeling. If anything, what I'm about to say might offend some people, but I'm just gonna be blank. Outside of my brother and maybe a few individuals that recently had been released at my job, I'm actually more uncomfortable around other black people than I am the police. I am extremely comfortable around the police. Extremely comfortable. So I can't speak for them, but that's just me. But no, you get rid of the police and everything is going to go total chaos. Anarchy, it's going to be crazy. Especially here in Sin City. Trust me, that is not an environment I want to imagine. Because like, what's going to happen if an emergency happens? If there's no police, who are you going to call? No pun intended. I mean, are we supposed to police ourselves? I tell you this, most civilized, normal human beings don't want to have to worry about that. I don't want to have to worry that, I'm constantly in danger of someone breaking into my place and wanting to steal my stuff, and I can't call someone about that. I mean, I don't own a gun yet. And even if I did, I would very much feel more comfortable having someone to call and to make that their job. So this idea of abolishing the police is the single dumbest idea that I've ever heard, and I do not support it at all. I understand that this is a serious issue that needs to be taken care of, but I'm sure that there is a solution to this that does not involve getting rid of the police. I do not support that idea whatsoever. So those are just my thoughts on the topic. Going on to the next question. Coming from the Batman of Neo Gotham, and you want to know, for as long as I've been playing story-driven video games, what characters from those games as story artists that I think weren't properly finished and could be expanded upon? Characters that I've played that could be expanded upon. I don't know. Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, they kind of left that a little bit unopen. Faith from Mirror's Edge. From what I played from the second one, they didn't really do anything with that. Maybe a few Star Wars characters. I would like to see some of their stories continued. I mean, in EU and other Star Wars games. Max Payne. Heck, I'd like to know a little bit more about him. I mean, I guess his story kind of had a positive ending because he was not in New York being hunted, and he was in South America, and he had just finished killing the guy that killed his boss. So, yeah, I mean, those are just a few examples I can come off of the top of my head. Just in terms of characters, I think you could maybe add another installment to the character, and I think I'd be okay with that. Another question coming from Andy Boy with an I 419, and you want to know, what is my favorite game and why? My favorite video game of all time is Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 is, even though I've said this before, JRPGs are undoubtedly my favorite genre of game ever. But the thing about Metal Gear Solid is it probably has my favorite overarching storyline throughout an entire franchise that I actually could understand, as complicated as it is. And it is a challenge to this day to even understand Metal Gear before Konami started screwing it up. But the reason I like it is because, one, it's a stealth game, and I was never really into stealth games at the time, so that was a big surprise. I love the game mechanics. Big Boss is probably, again, I'd have to think long and hard about this. I said this in a previous video. It's either Auron or Big Boss in terms of my favorite video game character of all time. I absolutely love the dynamic between him and the boss. I love the storylines that plays out during that time. I love the fact that, unlike Final Fantasy, which is entirely fiction, Metal Gear Solid 3 actually incorporates real historic events into its storylines, and there aren't too many games that actually do that as successfully as the Metal Gear Solid franchise has done. I absolutely love the ending. It's one of the few moments that actually legitimately made me cry. I love the cast of characters. I love the voice performances. It's perhaps like the one game I think Konami was like seriously teasing, because they made like a Metal Gear Solid 3 pachinko machine, and if you've actually seen what the game looks like in Fox Engine, it looks absolutely incredible. And so they're like teasing us, and it's like, why wouldn't you just make that? I would welcome an updated remake version of Metal Gear Solid 3 if it looked like that, but instead they made it for stupid pachinko machines, but it still looked pretty damn good. And then the thing about Metal Gear Solid 3, the one thing that really helps me and kind of solidifies it above Final Fantasy, is the fact that there's a number of life lessons, a number of virtues that at the time that I played really connected with me, and I incorporated a number of important life lessons and elements into my own life, and I still very much follow that. Like, my entire personality base is based upon the idea of loyalty. I'm extremely loyal, and I do not take betrayal very, very well, and that is important to me. I mean, trust me, I don't have a lot of deep, close friends, but I can tell you, if you happen to get into that circle, trust me, you have a lifelong loyalty commitment from me, for life, and I've never even considered betraying that. And there's only like a couple people that were in that circle that even in my private moments, I've never said a bad thing about them behind their back, and I will always have their back no matter what. And there's nothing anyone can do to change my mind about that person. And in some sad cases that has been used against me, it's perhaps the one quality about how I am as a person that I'm most proud of. And there's a number of also lessons that I've learned from games. There's a number of important life lessons I've learned from games that I've incorporated into my own life. But I would say the first one that managed to pull it off was Metal Gear Solid 3, which is why even to this day it is without question my favorite video game of all time. It just managed to touch me as not only as a gamer, but as a person. And I think if I hadn't played that game, perhaps things about me would not be the way that they are. And so I have that game to thank for that. And that's why Metal Gear Solid 3 is going to always probably remain my favorite video game of all time. And that takes me to last question of the episode, coming from Red Guilty. And your question is a little bit personal, but I liked it. And you want to know, do I consider Rachel like a sister, like how I consider, it's not Antonio, it's actually Antoine, as a brother more than a friend? No, unfortunately not. I do not view Rachel as a sister in the same way that I view Antoine as a brother. Those are very, very different dynamics that are just very distant. Antoine is literally, no joke, not exaggerating. He is literally the first friend in my life that I've ever made. I have known him since the age of 6, and he was 5. I did not have a single friend all throughout first grade, and I have vague memories of that time, but I very much have very definitive memories, sharp ones, about the time that I first met Antoine back in those days. And when it comes to Rachel, Rachel is definitely more of just a standard friend and someone who continues to inspire me, because some of you that may not know this, but Rachel is the very person who inspired me to even start the 3TR channel. And as you can see behind me, she continues to do so. But I think I'm one of the few individuals that can say that I've kind of elevated my status with her, from going from someone who, before meeting her, I was merely just a fan, to someone who is a legitimate friend. I do not consider myself to be a close friend of hers, because she doesn't have my number and I don't have hers, so she's not someone that she regularly calls, or I would consider myself in her close circle of friends, because, you know, we just haven't had enough time. We've known each other for several years. We've known each other for 8 years, and we have been able to hang out at multiple different events and multiple different times and moments, and I cherish all of those moments. All of those moments are like some of the few legitimate happy moments of my life that have happened over the past 10 years. And anytime Rachel comes to Vegas, she does always actively contact me and lets me know that she's coming to town, and then I, do whatever I can at work to take time off just so I can hang out with her and her boyfriend Seth, because Seth is also really awesome guy, very philosophical guy to talk to, can have very, very deep conversations with him. So yeah, I love hanging out with the both of them. And I'm also fortunate. I'm actually fortunate to say that I'm actually considered a friend on her channel. Like, if you actually go to her channel page, I'm actually listed as one of her friends on her channel. So to go from someone that inspired your channel and being just a fan, to elevating yourself to being someone that she legitimately considers a friend, and then to be given a spot on her channel openly, is something that I'm very, very blessed to have been in that position. And even time to time, she contacts me if, like, she happens to see something that's cool, that's PlayStation, because she knows how much PlayStation, like, there's a number of merchandise that I've recently purchased that I would not have found if it wasn't for Rachel. In fact, it was Rachel who was actually introduced me to PlayStation Experience. I didn't even know about that until she mentioned that. So she's definitely the kind of person that keeps in contact with me on certain occasions, and if certain things pop up. But yeah, in terms of considering her like a sister, no. I mean, she's significantly, I would say she is a bit older than I am, so I don't think I could ever be in the kind of position that her close friends that she knows, like, that she lives close to, can be. And that's perfectly fine with me, because I can't really put her in my circle either, because of just where we're living and the time we are in our lives. But she is undoubtedly and continues to be an inspiration. She still motivates me to kind of push my channel, and I'm getting very, very close to kind of catching up to her in terms of subscriber count, which I might even end up hitting that next year. But she is without a doubt one of the closest friends I've had in a long time that has actually stayed with me for a number of years. Most people who know me, they're friends that they don't stick around that very long. But the fact that I've almost known each for like 10 years is something I'm very, very happy and glad to have. And I consider her a friend. She considers me a friend. We do happen to talk with each other every once in a while. And the fact that, you know, the channel was originally named after her, and even the channel now in the form of 3TG, that was her idea. She came up with that name. I mean, I told her she knew what 3TR was for and why it was named after her. And then when I kind of wanted to make the transition, I asked, well, what would you name it then? And she said, well, why not try 3TG? And that's how we are where we are today. So, yeah, I do consider Rachel a very good friend, but as a sister, probably not. But heck, that doesn't make her any less important to me. Just she's very good. And with that, those are the questions that were able to get into the video for this particular episode. I'd like to thank everyone who sent in your questions that I answered in the comment section of the last video, as well as answered them here. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below, but make sure you get them into me roughly before next Wednesday around noon, before I start filming the next episode. And like always, if you want to increase your chances of having them enter the video instead of being entered in the comment section of this video, just have them be a little bit more interesting, maybe make them a little bit personal. I'm open to all types of questions. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will see you next week.